The ballroom had the kind of quiet polish that made people speak a little more carefully than usual. Soft lighting. Tall glass windows. Tables arranged with white linen and small centerpieces that were elegant enough to suggest success, but not so extravagant that investors would question the budget. It was my husband's company Gala. 10 years earlier, the firm had started as 2 desks in a rented office. Now it had 3 floors downtown and enough investors to fill a ballroom like this. I stood near the back of the room for most of the evening, greeting people who knew me only through proximity. "Oh, you're Daniel's wife," someone said at least 4 times. They always said it kindly, as if that was the entire introduction required. Daniel moved easily through the room, shaking hands, laughing at the right moments. Beside him most of the night was his business partner, Laura. Laura had joined the firm 3 years earlier, and quickly became part of every major decision. Investors liked her. She spoke their language: growth, expansion, leverage. I had met her dozens of times. She was intelligent, confident, tireless. Across the room, Daniel's mother circulated like a host even though the event wasn't hers. She wore a silver dress and carried the posture of someone who believed the evening existed partly because of her son. Whenever she passed someone new, she told a version of the same story. He built this company from nothing. Each retelling grew slightly more impressive. By 9 o'clock, the formal speeches began. The CEO thanked the investors. The lead architect talked about their new headquarters. Applause rose and settled like gentle waves across the room. Then Daniel's mother stood up. No one had scheduled her, but she walked confidently to the microphone as if she had always been part of the program. "Just a few words," she said warmly. Guests smiled politely. She began the way proud parents often do, talking about childhood determination, about watching her son grow into the man who built such a successful company. The room listened comfortably. Then her speech shifted. "I also want to mention someone extraordinary," she said, gesturing toward Laura. Laura looked slightly surprised but smiled as the spotlight of attention moved toward her. "This young woman," Daniel's mother continued, "has been the real force behind this company's next chapter." Applause rose around the tables. Laura gave a modest nod. But the speech didn't stop there. Daniel's mother looked slowly around the room. "You see," she said thoughtfully, "success requires the right kind of partner." Her tone remained gentle, almost reflective. Someone ambitious, someone sharp, someone fully committed. She paused just long enough for the words to settle. Someone unattached to distractions. A few guests shifted slightly in their chairs. Her gaze drifted briefly toward my table. "She's everything his wife could never be." The sentence landed softly in the air. Not shouted, not angry, just stated. A few people laughed nervously. Others lowered their glasses and looked toward the floor or the stage or anywhere except my direction. Daniel stood beside Laura, frozen between embarrassment and silence. Laura herself seemed unsure whether to react. I remained seated. Not because I lacked something to say, but because the moment already belonged to her. Public humiliation has a strange quality. It stretches time slightly, allowing every small movement in the room to become noticeable. A man near the stage cleared his throat. Someone adjusted their chair. The microphone picked up the faint echo of its own feedback. Daniel's mother finished hers with a cheerful note about the company's future. Applause came slowly, unevenly. The gala resumed its rhythm. Waiters moved between tables, conversations restarted carefully. But the room had changed. 20 minutes later, the doors at the back of the ballroom opened. 2 men entered. They wore dark suits, the kind that carried quiet authority rather than celebration. At first no one paid much attention. Events this often attracted late arrivals, consultants, investors, advisors. But these men didn't move toward the bar or the tables. They walked directly toward the stage. One of them carried a folder. A few conversations faded as people noticed the direction they were heading. Daniel saw them first. His expression shifted in a way that was small but unmistakable. The music stopped. One of the men spoke briefly with the event coordinator before stepping onto the stage. He didn't take the microphone. He simply addressed Daniel. "Mr. Whittaker." The room went still. The man opened the folder and handed Daniel a document. Even from across the room, I could see the moment recognition arrived. Daniel read the first page quickly. Then again more slowly. Laura stepped closer to him. "What is it?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer immediately. The man spoke calmly, his voice carrying across the quiet ballroom. "This is formal notice regarding the investigation into the firm's recent contract filings." A ripple moved through the room. Investors looked at one another. Someone whispered near the bar. Laura took the document from Daniel and read it herself. Her composure held for about 5 seconds. Then her face changed. The expansion deals that had made the company look unstoppable had also created something else. Regulatory attention. Questions about reporting. Questions about how certain contracts had been structured. The document made it official. The room that had celebrated success 20 minutes earlier now held 60 people watching a company's reputation begin to fracture. Daniel stood very still. Laura began speaking quickly to the men, asking questions, trying to manage the moment. But the authority in the room had already shifted. The gala had stopped being a celebration. Across the tables, investors began quietly collecting their coats. Daniel's mother sat down slowly. Her earlier speech hung in the air like an unfinished echo. I finished the glass of wine in front of me. Not because I felt victorious. Just because it seemed like the most ordinary thing left to do. Around me, conversations had turned careful and quiet. Some people avoided looking at Daniel entirely. Others watched with the detached curiosity ripe for public unraveling. I stood up. No one stopped me. As I walked toward the exit, I passed the stage where the document still rested, in Daniel's hands. He looked smaller than he had earlier in the evening. The ballroom doors closed softly behind me. Outside, the night air felt cooler than expected. Inside, the truth had finally entered the room. And once it did, no speech could hold the story together anymore.